You're from Cape Breton. Now you have this very cosmopolitan life, it seems to me. You're published, you're giving talks like
Big
this.
city.
World renowned. What's your relationship like with the place that you come from and your family and the people back home?
Oh, they're really proud. I come home and my books are for sale in the post office because the village is too small, it doesn't have a bookstore. And my mom stocks them there. And when people want a book, they usually call my mom to figure out where to get it. So I put out a book and people came to her and they're like, how do I get this? Do I get it from you? And she's like, oh, I guess I'll, she buys a big piles off of Amazon. And then she sells them at the post office. And it's adorable. And the only book place that sells books, actually, it's a gift shop. The lady who runs it, she used to be a nurse and she delivered me when I was a baby. So I go to that store and I'm like, Alice, what can I get for you? I basically owe you everything.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Yvonne Hunter. I'm the head of programming here at the Appel Salon at the Toronto Public Library. Very exciting to see all of you tonight. I think that you are in for a very fun treat. Many months ago, I received a call from Julia, the marketing director at Drawn and Quarterly. Her question, would I like to launch the new book from New York Times bestselling graphic novelist Kate Beaton? I guess you know what my answer was. So now I will ask you to join me in welcoming Emily M. Keeler and Kate Beaton.
So I'm going to ask a couple questions, and then after I ask a couple questions, you guys can ask some questions.
By the way, I was reading your Twitters. I was reading Twitter before we got up here, and somebody wrote, everyone's here, judging by the crowd, I wonder who's feeding our cats.
Yeah.
Bravo.
So who is feeding your cat right now?
I wish I had a cat. I used to
Okay.
live with a cat. But now I move around too much, and it would probably perish somewhere.
That's very sad. That's
Right? It's a sad reason not to own an animal that you fear that it would be worse off with you than I don't know elsewhere. Next question.
I think let's move on from perishing pets. I think that the reason the cat joke from Twitter works so well is because you have this sort of thing where the stuff you're interested in, you know, the Brontes,
Yeah.
for example, Alexander Pope, for example, they lend very well to being the kind of person who stays inside a lot, perhaps drinking tea. And maybe there's a cat involved. I'm personally allergic, but I'm wondering if it's weird for you sometimes to have this very like public relationship with those personality tropes.
No, it's wicked. Like all those people are always really cool and well-read and usually very funny, and usually they read and watch the same things as you do. You know, they're very smart. I mean, the relationship that I have with my audience is curated to only include really awesome people. Like even my publishers will say, like, the people who come up to see you at comic shows are nicer than anybody else. And that I think is because from the very beginning, I put my work online and there was an audience and there was a dialogue there. And I get a sense if they are, even if I don't answer all the tweets and I don't answer all the emails, I'm sorry if you wrote me an email, it's just a black hole. Ask my agent. 3 emails later, he's like, right back. I'm like, what? I didn't look at this. I love how much you have to tip a wine glass to get it into your mouth. So it just looks like you're just pounding it even if you're taking a sip. It's cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, from the beginning, there's been like, and I've always kind of striven to just represent myself the way I am, because I noticed early on, especially I think in the early days, creators online could turn into almost iconic figures. They weren't really humans to people. And I think that it's the separation between the audience and the creator that does that. So I feel like when I talk to people, I'm really talking to people, and that's the best way to build the audience.
Yeah, that makes sense to me, to people and not just...
I mean, you could think of like your favorite writers, and a lot of them, you know, they're just like, it's like they live on the moon or something. They don't live in your city. They show up for an event, and it's like they descend from a helicopter or something. I don't know. Even though you know that they're real people too.
I mean, because you got your start online in sort of a different kind of internet than what we have now.
Yeah.
I'm wondering if you feel that like that was the one period of time where it was possible to build these kinds of relationships. Like, has all of that changed? Are there people who can do webcomics now and still find that one-to-one relationship, or has everything been metricized? And
I think so, but I think it's harder to figure it out now, maybe. Like, I had the benefit of coming into like a small place that was expanding. I mean, the internet was already big in 2007. It just wasn't as big as it is now. And you could kind of go inch by inch. And now anybody that goes into it just jumps in the deep end of the pool and has to figure it all out from there. And I think that that's probably difficult. But I can't say. I mean, everything is normalized to what you are used to. If you're young and you're starting a comic now, that's what it is. That's just the way it is. When I was younger and I started mine, the internet was like a big mystery to people who had started in print. And the question was like, how do we transition and stuff? But we just landed and set up shop in what we felt was familiar. So people are doing that now too. So I think in any kind of generation, they'll figure out where they're supposed to be.
yeah. One of the things that I really enjoy about the way you do comics is you have a lot of variety of styles, and some of them seem to make a lot of sense in an online infinite scroll capacity. Like, especially when you're doing the like long, sketchier comics about your family, for example.
Yeah.
And then you have these other ones that feel like they're ripped from the best possible Saturday comics page in an imaginary newspaper.
Yeah.
Do you feel that like coming up online gave you the possibility to kind of experiment in those ways?
Yeah, do both. Like, a lot of the early webcomics were basically newspaper comics that were online, except they were about video games instead of cats. There was one about cats and video games. Perfect. And I think that we all emulated what we were used to seeing, but then you saw people breaking those boundaries, and that looked cool, or some people were just born to do that. I like using the kind of 3-panel gag thing, not because it comes from a newspaper, but because I really like putting up something that is complete and very easily realized, like a perfect little gag. I get a lot of satisfaction out of that.
Yeah, it feels like with the 3 panels, you can feel the joke coming, but it's always satisfying.
Yeah, yeah. Have you ever read a long piece of humor fiction? It's usually, at some point, you kind of get tired of it. I really like the short and sweet and to the point. That's kind of what we're in for. Like, and Jack Handy can write a full-length novel that's a comedy, but nobody else can. Yeah.
One of the things that I'm going to contradict you about is I feel like one of your longer comics, a more recent one called Nasty Boy, where you reimagine the entire life of a man who appears for like a second on screen in Janet Jackson's video for Nasty. It's a great song, wonderful video. But you that's a very long comic for you.
Yeah.
And in the book it takes up like a little like a quarter an inch of the book almost. And I'm wondering if you're kind of moving towards trying to find out how to have those like longer, more meditatively funny experiences.
Every now and then you have an idea like that, and that one just like, it was so good. It was like a little sketch, like a sketch comedy sketch. And I had it in my head for a long time, but it didn't fit Hark, Vagrant. And then one day I was just like, oh, whatever, I'll just draw it. But I'll draw it in pencil so I don't have to work really hard. Just sketch this thing out and put it online like that. And I did. And I think, well, that was like 2012, 11 maybe 2011. And I think there was, at that time, like, right now, anything that comes out, like any Mad Max movie, people are all over it. They're like, who are the women? How are they represented? What was their story? Like, let's get down to brass tacks here. How feminist was this? And if it's not, it's garbage. And that's cool, but that's a recent thing. I kind of like, you kind of forget what the conversation was even like 3 years ago. It wasn't it wasn't as intense as it is now. And I remember there was some kind of conversation happening about Janet Jackson's nasty, because she just shoots it. Basically, they're like, she's trying to watch a movie, and these dudes are like, hey girl, they're like bothering her at the movie for like 2 seconds. And then she destroys their world. She doesn't just say, get out of here. She gets on the stage where the movie's playing and starts dancing. And then she's on all the TV screens, and all, like, around the time, everyone, like, if you walk outside the theater, like, all the people in the streets are dancing to Janet Jackson. It's wicked. But it's so funny, because you never see that guy again. You never see the guy who's bothering her again. And it's still funny. If you watch that video and think about that guy, like, she just takes to the streets and she like takes over the earth. Just telling him that he's worthless. So in the comic, he's like, oh no. he has to like reappreciate his sense of self. But he's a nasty boy. He cannot not be a nasty. He doesn't like really fix himself. He just finds a place where he belongs.
It's the home for nasty boys.
Yes,
not
St. Jude's home for the nasty. And if you're a Catholic, you know that St. Jude is the patron saint of lost causes. It's a little in-joke there for the Catholic crowd. Yes.
So I feel like that joke is still funny to you. Like, it's a very long-form joke.
Like, my joke isn't funny, I don't think, as much as like the Janet Jackson video is funny when you look at it the way that I see it, I guess. Because I'm sure that like she was just like they had the meeting for the video, and this is the early '90s. It's not like if like a movie like, came out like Mad Max, like there wasn't that conversation. So like Janet like being a total boss in the early '90s was actually huge, and I think she had a big effect on a lot of people. And that makes a lot of sense. And then the video just, you know, maybe people saw it then and they're just like, oh, she just starts dancing. But when we watch it, I feel like she destroys the planet.
It's fitting to me that it appears in this collection, which of course is called Step Aside Pops, which is really cool. And it seems that there's sort of like, even just in the language of Step Aside Pops, there's like a turn towards dealing with like a more explicitly feminist lens in this collection than in the previous Hark, Vagrant collection. Yeah,
and I've gotten that question before in different interviews, and this is really where I think it comes from. Not only is it interesting, but like there's this larger conversation happening now that has to do with like the essays that come out when the movies come out, and they're like, Avengers was good, but let's talk about all the ways it failed the Black Widow. And you wouldn't have had those things to read. And I don't know if you guys are like me, when I watch a movie and then I immediately Google it, and then I'm like, I read all the think pieces. It's like a drug. And I do that, and then maybe that ruins the kind of like pure entertainment notion of the movies, but it's super interesting conversation. And then, so not only is that happening, but when you're a woman in comics, people drag you into it, whether you like it or not, almost. Like, even if I was someone who was like, I never want to talk about feminism, people would include me in tweets about things that they're talking about, or they would use my work as an example of women doing this. Or I would go to a comic show and they'd put me on a panel of women in comics, and so like that conversation just lands on your lap. And so I think that it was those two things that makes more of my work skew in that direction, because one, it's happening and it's interesting and I want to read about it, and two, I literally cannot get away from it if I wanted to. And then the more that you read about it, like any kind of place where there's strife like that, there's comedy, which is that's my bread and butter, so I go for that.
Yeah. It's funny that you talk about there being this sort of culture of the impulse to frame everything in a feminist way.
Yeah.
And like you've had a few comics recently that have very strongly reacted to that. I'm going to ask you now about Straw Feminist.
Yeah.
Which is one of my favorite comics. Look at these legs. But Yeah, no, it's too good. It's too good. And I work for the National Post, which is a newspaper, and at the end of that comic, there's, one of the straw feminists slithers up to the window and tells the dad that someone needed a quote from the paper.
Yeah.
So she told them all men are rapists.
Yeah, and that's the kind of thing that papers have published. Like the most inflammatory thing you feel, or I feel, like if I do like an interview with anybody at all, the most like possibly inflammatory thing that I would say would just be the headline. They were like, "Where's the clicks?" And I think you see that with that kind of feminine. But I don't know where the idea for Straw Feminist came up from, but I remember thinking about it. I mean, like, yes, these like they're almost like these super radical, super like man-hating, dick-chopping feminists. They show up in conversations about feminism, even though I've never met one, and it's not to say that you have never met one, but even if you did, like, it's not like they're actually have any power in society at all. They're just like some angry person somewhere who's angry, and but you have to address it all the time. You have to like. I feel like you always have to like talk about feminism and then deal with this image that never goes away, and it hasn't gone away. Not even since I love early suffragette cartoons, which is the cover of the book, with these women who are riding bikes and smoking and wanting to vote, like they're ruining society, and they're awful. They're awful. And now we look at that and it's funny, but then you open the paper or look online about a comment or anything about feminism, and in the comments people are like, "Feminists, blah, they're awful. They're awful." And it's that same kind of like weird boogeyman that they're going to ruin society, and not only in like a weird and crazy way, but like an unbelievable way, but enough to when a lot of the young people don't want to identify as feminists, they're like, I'm not a feminist. Like, I believe that women should have like all equal rights and everything, but like I'm not a feminist because feminists are crazy, and and it just doesn't like that image is and the word is used as like a scary thing. So that's what I played with there. I thought it was a fun thing because I mean I love making comics about horrible people. So it was also very natural. They're snakes. They like slither. One of them is slithering on the ceiling at one point. It's the best. Oh, it's fun to draw.
Yeah, it seems like it's also one of those situations where there's a tension in your work between looking at historical precedents of things and the way things were. Like you're just talking about the female bicyclists and early days when it was the weirdest thing in the world that a woman should be able to go where she wants to go, when she wants to go, at the pace of a bicycle.
Yeah.
But now, as you say, things haven't changed that much. Do you feel that like you're drawn towards more contemporary subject matter out of frustration sometimes, or is it just funnier now?
Maybe. I don't know. Like the things that people deal with, the hardships that people deal with is not funny, but then my job, I think, is a humorist, so I naturally try and pull that out. I mean, even at your worst job or your worst like thing that you had to deal with, if you didn't have a sense of humor about it, you probably would have went nuts, and at least that's my experience. So when I make these comics, you are often looking at a modern thing through the past, and we make sense of everything through a modern perspective. So that seems like a natural thing, I guess.
It's funny because I feel like, not to bring up Nasty Boy again, but I'm just really obsessed with this comic. I think like it's so good, you guys. I think one of the things that comes through very clearly there, and also in much of the other work you do, where you do paint historical figures with a really empathetic sense, and so often these historical figures are men. I wonder if you feel that like the gift of comedy is just in trying to understand everyone. Like you have your sort of feminist champions, your R.B. Wells, but then you also have like Chopin.
Yeah, lots of men. I mean, I take an equal stance, really. I've never counted or anything, but I think it's probably equal men and women. But I don't think that people are used to seeing so many comics about women, so I've made a name for myself that way, which is kind of funny, I guess. Excuse me, wine. I think that if you have a general interest in history, you are kind of all over the map. You're interested in anybody's story if it's a good story. You're really just sort of in it for whatever interesting stuff that you can kind of dig up. Have you ever worked in an archives or something? I have. A lot of times it's really boring. I don't actually recommend working in, because you just end up with a stack of photos that you have to code on like an archaic computer system and file things. Anyway, it's just like a lot of that. But every now and then they give you a box and they're like, look in this box and like that we got donated or that was in the old archive files or whatever, and go through it and see what you can find, and you're like, holy shit. Like whatever's in there that's interesting is good. So it's the same thing here. There's just sort of like surfing around the internet, looking for shit that I like.
Yeah, one of the more
That's the headline for the paper.
Yeah, you, like with the broadside ballads, for example, or you have a series where you like reimagine what's actually happening in book covers, like Nancy Drew.
Yeah.
How do you decide to like extend something that you've just found that's some shit you like on the internet? How does it make the jump into
My secret? I don't know. It just has to set a spark off in your brain that's like, oh, this can be good. If I did this, this would be good. And even sometimes you try and you think it's going to be good, it's not, and you got to keep going. So it totally depends. I wish there was a method to it. Otherwise, I would probably work less and like hang out on a beach more instead of sitting in the studio, like looking, like reading stuff. And people are like, "What are you working on?" And you're like, "I don't even know." Well, they paint. Something that seems really useful. And I'm just reading some blog post about like Marie Antoinette's handmaid. I don't know.
What blog networks are you like?
Looking through some archives. That's why I found the broadside ballads. It's just like I couldn't believe that there's a whole couple of whole online archives documenting broadside ballads and their images, and there's a whole index, and it's all sort of transcribed from these. It's a lot of work, and I think of the archivists who are doing that. They're like, here's another one. Oh, Jesus. Well, they like look at it and transcribe it, but it's also a labor of love. Like there's a couple of websites out there where like it's user based, where like they have these old letters, say, antique letters, and they invite people, anyone, to transcribe them because it's a lot of work. Like pick a letter, transcribe it, send it in. Someone will like proofread it or something. And people are like, wicked, which is, it's doing homework. Who's doing that? Hats off. But yeah, there's the internet's a place for nerds to hang out. Look at cool shit.
Because so many of your subjects are very historical, do you ever feel like you're in this position where you're teaching people, you know, things like, for example, Tom Longboat, who I didn't know about until I read.
And yet there's a Tom Longboat race here every year in Toronto.
I'm also like I sit at home alone.
Right? Well, it's not like I knew that. It's not how I found out. I found out later and I was like, I live in Toronto. I don't know what happens here. I found him, it's not always straightforward. It's not always like, let me find out, because what would you even
We
Google?
should maybe back out for people who are like me and didn't know who Tom
Longboat
was.
Tom Longboat, he was a runner in like the first decade of the 1900s, and what are the naughties? What the heck are those? Let's say the 10s, because that's close. Anyway, he was at the 1908 Olympics, and he was like as famous for running as like Usain Bolt. His name was synonymous with being fast. They were like, "Who do you think I am, Tom Longboat?" And everyone's like, "Oh, it's a fast guy." He was First Nations, the Onondaga, and he pioneered like rest days, or he knew like that was part of their culture anyway. Like they knew that a body needed to rest at a time when everyone else was trying to figure out, like, they were just like, you just pound it every day. You go there and you run until you drop. And they would see him sitting off on the side and be like, what are you, you're lazy. He's like, no, your body needs to recuperate because of all the strain you put it through. And they're like, whatever. And they just keep running until they fall dead somewhere. Their body literally falls apart. Like a really interesting guy. And I found him because I was looking up uniforms, national uniforms at the 1908 Olympics. That's what I was doing that day. At London, because if I'm not wrong, it's the first year that that countries actually came to the Olympics with a national uniform. And I love looking at the opening ceremonies just to see the outfits that come out, right? We all watch it for that. And so like to think of like the first one when they're like, well, we're our first national costume. We're kind of used to the spectacle of it now, but for them to come out with like, all right, so like we're Team USA and we have to have a thing there that says that we are, like, what did they come up with? And I love old-time sports uniforms anyway. Also, if you look up the 1908 Olympics, you see the women's archery team in full dresses and blouses and hats, like they just got off a streetcar and started shooting arrows. And it's amazing. And all the guys are, everyone else is in like shorts and a tank top. But the women were just like full skirts and everything. And Tom Longboat obviously stuck out. One, because he had the maple leaf on his chest, so I knew he was Canadian. And two, because he was obviously First Nation. So you're like, well, this guy's got to have an interesting story. And you look it up, and he totally, totally does. That he was just like, unlike all of the other athletes, because of his background and his values and his the reasons why he succeeded or failed in life and everything was just, he was a really awesome guy to read about. And I was like, oh, I'll make a comic about this. And that's how it works.
How do you reconcile the desire to like tell someone about something really cool with the desire to like make them laugh? Like, like in the Tom Longboat situation, you set up the comics really well, where it's like you can see that he had some circumstances that he overcame, and it's sort of like the world sucks, and that's why we're laughing.
Yeah.
But that's also kind of true for most history, is it not?
Yeah.
Like the world has always sucked.
Yeah, and there are guys that you can just drop a comic about. Well, you can drop a comic about Ben Franklin doing almost anything, and people be like, Ben Franklin, we know that guy. That's our guy. But you can't just drop Tom Longboat because people are like, who? And they won't know who you're talking about unless they're the like 50 hardcore Tom Longboat guys who organize the race, and he's like, he's a hero to a lot of people. It's just that he doesn't have the what. All of these people, anybody who is like a lesser known hero of history, usually has like a rabid following of a really smaller but super into them. Like I get a lot of emails from people who are like, you have to make a comic about, this person. I got one today. They're like, Grace Hopper. Do you know who that is? I'm like, yes, I know who that is. But I don't know who all of them are. And those people are just like, I can't believe that nobody else knows about this person. This person is my hero. And I'm the head of their society that's trying to like organize a fundraiser for this thing. And it's really touching. I'm always super touched by that kind of devotion to somebody's story, by people who are just like, I want people to know. They have to know. And so yeah, like I do. You have to consider the fact that nobody else really knows. So there's a bit of exposition. So there's a couple comics that show a bit of that, and then people get comfortable with the character, and then we can start sort of rolling with different jokes. Because not everybody can be Ben Franklin. If you just like kept it to the characters that everybody knew and knew a bit of their personality, and then it would all just be like white guys from the 1700s who founded America. That's it. And Napoleon.
So I have one more question, and then I think we should open it up. So if you guys want to start lining up, that's cool. If you have some really good questions. My question is, what is it about the fat pony?
Oh, I don't know. It keeps getting rounder and more wall-eyed, and like, it's one of the earliest things that I drew, and I honestly, like its origin story is so ridiculous, because I worked in the oil sands, right, for a few years. When I started the comic there, And they're so obsessed with not getting sued for safety reasons, because people do get seriously hurt up there. You go to the safety meetings in the morning, and they would just be like talking to children. They would be like, do not fall on the ice is slippery. If you run on it, you might fall. Don't fall, that hurts, you'll hurt yourself. And wear boots, wear shoes on the ice, because it's cold. And you're like, what the hell? They're just talking to a bunch of grown-ups. And then so I'd listen to that stuff every morning. And then I got an email that was just like way too flowery. That was like, "You're a genius. Everything is amazing." And it was these two like separate messages coming at me. I was like, both of these are insane. And I wanted to make a comic about something that was just deliberately very, very silly. And I drew this fat horse, and he rode away, and he farted or he pooed or something. Anyway, and then people were like, "This is the best thing I've ever seen." And that really hasn't stopped as far as that. And it's great. And actually, you know what? I'm so used to it. I was like, I really don't know what this is all about. And then we got Tobacco and we went in and made like a plush horse, like a plush fat pony. And the company was taking super long to get it done. It's not going to be like for sale until like November, but they sent me the prototype, and I got the prototype, and I was like, oh, now I see. It's so cute. And I gave it to my baby nephew, and he like ripped it apart. We're like, no. Oh well. Anyway.
Yeah, okay. On that note, let's open it up.
Hi. I wanted to ask about the research you do on historical figures. So
Yeah.
is most of it looking at things on the internet, or occasionally do you say, I really want to read a book about this person, and then think up some jokes about them?
Occasionally, there's books. My bookcases are full of stuff, and but there might only be a chapter in there that you want to read. And actually, to read like a whole biography of somebody does take a long time. I've gotten to the point where I really narrow in on the things that I want, and I know how to get them. I'm a master Googler, and I used to work at this library and look up the books that I wanted and stuff. And there was a lot, but there would always be stuff that I was missing too. And I started to appreciate exactly how much was online. There are original documents, there are full books, there are essays and photo archives and university like collections and library collections and whole, like almost anything that you can find it there. It's really, really amazing. And I know that a lot of us think of like, because Wikipedia exists and you're like, well, it's the internet, so it's not exactly, but there's a lot of legit stuff out there. I've read a lot of like pointed reading, like you're writing. Basically, my comics are like essays that you wrote in school. You read it. You're not an expert on it, but you read enough to make what you want to make and the points that you want to make, and make sure that you're not making a total gaffe and have different facts wrong. So I do. Most of the research is definitely online, even though I do have books. And it's because the way that the internet is right now allows for a lot of actually really legit research.
Hi, love your work.
Hey.
You kind of answered some of the question I was originally going to ask, which was about the intentionality of each joke and whether you ever make something that you think is funny one day and the next day you're just like, eh.
Oh yeah, all the time.
Okay.
Every day you wake up and you're like, I'm a fraud. Is today the day we all find out?
Then we're hoping for some sort of cutting room floor edition one day.
What's that?
A cutting room floor edition one day.
Oh God, no. No,
Okay,
never.
the question I actually wanted to ask was, are there any topics that somebody says, hey, how about you do a comic about this? And you're just like, no, I am not
Oh yeah, I
touching
remember
that.
early on, like really early on, people were like, do Hitler. And I'm like, no.
Is there a list of no-fly zones for you?
That's you're like, my like Holocaust, like hilarity roller coaster isn't coming out anytime soon. But Yeah, sure there are. I mean, it has to be in good taste, and if you can take almost any subject, even if it doesn't seem like something that you should, and you can make jokes about it. And for me, as long as I can do it with respect to the subject at hand, with good taste, and I'm not excluding things like fart jokes, like you can, but you can't just take a shit all over something that's important to people. And so I do have no-fly zones. So that it really depends on how you construct the joke around it. Like I don't consider anything off limits, but I do have limits within, tact.
Thank you.
Sure.
Hi. So you're from Cape Breton, and
Yes.
I know you've written comics about living there and working in the oil fields out west and all of these different places that your life has taken you. Now you have this very cosmopolitan life, it seems to me. You're published, you're giving talks like
Big
this.
city.
World-renowned. What's your relationship like with the place that you come from and your family and the people back home? And
Oh, they're really proud. God love them. I come home and my books are for sale in the post office because the village is too small. It doesn't have a bookstore. They're in the post office, and my mom stocks them there. And when people want a book, they usually call my mom to figure out where to get it, and because that's what happens. I think it started with like musicians. Like if you put out your fiddle CD, which is de rigueur. You had your fiddle CD, and your mom sold it out of the house. So I put out a book, and people came to her, and they're like, "How do I get this? Do I get it from you?" And she's like, "Oh, I guess I'll." She buys a big piles off of Amazon, and then she sells them at the post office, and it's adorable. And the only book place that sells books, actually. It's a gift shop in the town next door in Inverness. So they sell it there. That's the only like store. The lady who runs it, she used to be a nurse, and she delivered me when I was a baby. I go to that store and I'm like, "Alice, what can I get for you? I basically owe you everything." She's like, "I tried to get your books through Drawn and Quarters. Anyway." That's real hard. I have to work really hard to get that, and I don't know how to work email. And you're like, I'll just write to them and make them send you a box. So they're adorable, basically, is the answer to that. They also drive me nuts because I come home and I'm like, oh, finally I'm home. Time to only eat potatoes and watch TV and forget about life. And Mom is like, oh, this person wanted their book signed, and they're coming up to the house today to get it. Because they always come up to the house, and you're like, no, I have to comb my hair and stuff. Anyway, yeah.
This isn't my question, but I spent 2 years at Acadia doing my teacher's college. I was from here,
nice.
right? And
Yeah.
I knew somebody with a fiddle CD. Like, it's just everywhere. Like, that's, yeah.
Anyway, this is how they work their way through college.
And they do sell it through their moms. It's exactly right. I can fact check this for her. I was at the Princess and Pony launch with my kids, and I noticed that it was entirely different from something like this.
Yeah.
So I wanted to ask what your experience has been making a children's book and then launching a children's book, and how that compares to like doing adult. I don't want to say adult work because that makes you sound like a porn star, but
Kids are amazing. Kids are an amazing audience, and the reason is because like if they don't like you, if they don't like what you're doing or what you're saying or your book, they don't care. They just go on with their day. If you, I grew up. I came into comics when there was still like flame wars and stuff. Does anyone remember those? How long has it been since you heard that term? But or just like people who actively hate stuff in comics, and they don't really do that with my work, but you see it everywhere. You see it in reaction to different people's work. You'd be like, kids are like, you would give them the book, you'd like, did you like that? And they're like, no. And they just keep going. And you're like, all right, well, that's fine. And then when you have like a hardcore comics fan, you're like, did you like that? And they're like, I hated it. I hated it. I hated it. And they write blog posts And you're like, the kids' view is wicked. And if they love it though, they love it more than anything. They're like, they just sort of fawn when they see you. And you're like, I wrote that book, and they're like, what? You didn't. And if you do a reading with them, they sort of listen and they sort of don't. And you're like, what was your favorite part of the book? And they're like, the story. And then if you draw with them, they draw amazing things. And they'll tell you all about their big brother. You're like, does anyone have any questions about the book? And they're like, my brother lost a tooth. And now you know.
I was taking.
And you're like, amazing.
I was taking one of our friend's daughter, and she just doesn't.
It's great.
She just doesn't talk a lot, so I was kind of talking for her and trying to talk to her, and she wasn't talking at all. And I was saying, oh, she lives on a farm and she raises chickens, and you were like, oh, I'm going to draw you a chicken. And then my daughter, who doesn't live on a farm and doesn't raise chickens, immediately got right in there, got really jealous, as 3-year-olds do, is like, I want a chicken on my book. And then you had to draw a chicken on her book. So
that's okay. I grew up with a lot of I grew up with a lot of fishermen's children, and they would come like, my dad caught a big fish, and I'd be like, God, I wish my dad would catch a big fish.
So we have time for just one more question really quick, and then maybe Kate can draw some chickens on all of your books.
Trace my hand.
Comic book writers like Will Eisner and Scott McCloud have written critical works on comics themselves. My two questions are, how do you feel about their books, and are there particular critics of comic books whose work, or graphic novels, whose work you admire? What brings you to them?
I don't know if I can name anybody, but I was interviewed recently by the Comics Journal, and I was very happy to get that invitation, because I feel like their interviews are very thorough, that the people know not only your history, but like kind of a really intimate knowledge of your background and your career, that I find very flattering. When I read somebody's interview at the Comics Journal, I know that I'm going to get into something that's probably goes a bit above and beyond what normal profiles are like. But to name somebody offhand, I don't think I know. Although we were just talking, is Mark Medley here? Did he come? Mark.
Did he leave, Mark?
Mark! Called you out. His interviews about comics are, in the Canadian scene, I think are always really good. He's the books editor for the Globe and Mail. He does good stuff.
All right, everybody, Kate Beaton.
Thank you.